G'day, Doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's round 18, and it is the fast review this time. It's the review of our 12-8 victory over the North Queensland Cowboys, a game that they were desperate to win and try their hardest. But look, the Bulldogs, the dogs that we're used to, turned up. They weren't perfect. They were off the pace early, so I'm going to talk about why they were off the pace and how that occurred. And I think it's important people hear this stuff. You know, we had so many missed tackles again, but you got to understand why we had the missed tackles. And that's the stuff I'm going to talk about. So not just sit there. We'll go through a few of the stats and we'll get them up now. So let's have a look. Okay, so look, the Cowboys had 51% possession in the game, holding the ball for about an extra 60 seconds. Their completion rate, 65%, which isn't going to do it for you. Ours was really bad in the first half. Both teams poor in the first half with possession. Cowboys got the early running. They were on top. They ended up having 228 attacking runs with the footy, yet we made more meters overall, which shows you a lot about us this year. Post-contact, we made more as well. They won the line breaks 5-2. There's reasons for that. Tackle breaks, we struggled with missed tackles, and some were soft. And it's a bit of a domino effect. If that middle early in that first 25, 30 minutes isn't able to do its job as effectively as it normally would, then we're going to start running into problems. Average set distance, more than the Cowboys. Kick return meters, not too bad. And about 3.4 seconds of the play the ball speed. And look, and watching that game and watching the Cowboys, they really struggled once we got to the lead. We made some stupid mistakes as well under fatigue. The boys were fatigued, but they did a really good job. It was a bit more humid. Serrato picked the extra forward and didn't have Galvin, which made complete sense to me and shows a coach whose only concern is having the right sort of team to win a game of rugby league, but also ensuring that he's developing players. And talking about developing players, Jethro Rinikama is all I will say. And Ari Tuala did a really good job as well, and it was great to see those two combine for that try. I love the way Tuala accelerated at the last moment to pass that ball to Jethro, because a lot of players slow down in that motion, and he showed that all the experience that he's had coming through the NRL has paid off, and he's done a lot of work studying the team and sort of getting things ready for him to come in and do what he's got to do. And Montoya's out for 6 weeks, which means that Ari Tuala likely to be that next man up now for that. A lot of people are going to say, bring Jethro back. I can see it now. And look, I think at our full strength side, I'd love to see Jethro there, but I think he's going to go with Onari Tuala, who will, people will say he's too slow, and we'll hear all that again. I have no doubt, because I know our fans, and those opinions will go around forcefully, especially after a loss. But we will see. I thought his reads were pretty good, and I felt that he worked hard. Contact was there. We'll have a look at the stats, try and give some context around them, and just talk about how this was really won. But it was a very sort of close game in many of the areas. Kick defusal, 88%, which is great for us. Jethro caught a lot of balls. We kept bombing Robert Derby. He dropped quite a few. We got repeat cents for that. Our effective tackle percentage, that's the worst it's been all season. You will find, and we had to make an extra 40, 50 tackles in the match, missing 57. I think it was a bit more than that. Got 2 intercepts in the match, which was important. 20 ineffective tackles, 15 errors, conceded 7 penalties. And we had to use all 8 interchanges. 2 head injury assessments, Curtis Moran and Matt Burton. And now, look, that very incident should have answered a lot of questions that the media have been asking about, why they put Lachlan Garvin in. And, well, that's a scenario where it makes perfect sense. But I think, look at it more holistically. What if Burton did get a HIA and he's out for 11 days and the first semi-final is in 8 days and it was a Category 1? That means Burton misses a game. So what I do ask is, will those people be sort of happy that Galvin's had at least 210 minutes of combination time and 2 full games with Toby, with him at 6 and Toby at 7? So it's going to help. Or it could be Toby Sexton who goes down. It could be Toby Sexton who goes down. And then you've got Birdo and the likelihood of Galvin. I don't think Mitch Woods is going to come up to play halfback, but they might even do that in one game just to see how he goes. You do not know. But getting back to this game, let's look at the player stats. So looking at the player stats, obviously Reid Marnie, 56 tackles. Now, look, as Gus says, you can do 56 tackles, but if you're not, trying to be first man into the contact, or you're just a flopper, it doesn't mean anything. And you'd rather see someone attempting to make tackles than someone who's, got 100% tackle efficiency, but isn't always in there. And as we always say, it doesn't count as a missed tackle if it's a misread. And that's the stat which is missing a lot of the time. Who's misreading the play? More so than who's missing the tackle. The back three, obviously great again. I felt Murray Taulagi was one of the best players on the field. I just felt he was so hard to handle the whole game. Laybutt, some really good footwork on that guy to make some breaks. Tom did and had a great game. And Ari Tuala with the break as well. But look, let's go through the Bulldogs. I don't really care about the Cowboys stats, to be honest, as individuals. But let's have a look at it. So looking at the way the work was done, so our back five contributed a lot. Bronson Cherry, he looks to me like he's injured. And I think he's back in a game a few weeks ago. Don't know how long ago it was, but I remember he sort of made a break. They tackled him, and he was just gingerly sort of got up. It's like a calf or something. And I just think he's not right. And his workload's usually a lot more than that. So I think he's sort of out there making his tackles, sort of helping when he's got to help. And look, I think he was sort of playing that role that Critter would play on that right edge, where Critter essentially does the least amount of work, but the work that he does is usually quality, as well as his leadership and the threat that he has. Now, Connor Tracy worked his butt off, had a couple of moments, with the drop ball that, that went out. And I think he had a couple of errors, Connor, but I felt that he was just a bundle of energy. He tried his heart out. He was everywhere on the field and did a wonderful job. Jacob Carraz, now, last try before halftime, there's a run from Jacob Carraz in that set, and it's the run. It's the run that sets it up. I felt it took him a little while to get into the game. He sort of wasn't getting as many carries. It was all sort of going to Anari Tuala and Jethro. Obviously, the Cowboys wanted to put them under pressure, and I think the coach sort of knew that. And yeah, look, I felt that Anari Tuala and Jethro Renikama, Jethro 21 hit ups, which is amazing. A lot of kick return stuff. Anari 19 hit up, so they shared it pretty well. And then on the other side of the field, Jacob and Terry, not quite as much work, but the post-contact meters of Jacob, that's definitely a stat you can look at. Okay. 84 post-contact meters out of that 200. Nearly half of his meters. For the forwards, look, I'm going to talk about missed tackles. And we'll look at the statistics of Sam Hughes. He plays 23 minutes. Sorry, that's not what it is. What did he play, Sam? Wouldn't have been too much. 22 minutes. Salmon played 36, which is probably less than what he will normally play. Curtis only played 14, but was impacted by that HIA. Jeffro come off with a bit of cramp, apparently, which is normal. Bailey worked hard for 59 minutes, coming off the interchange bench. Harry Hayes, 47 minutes off the bench, and Josh Curran, 45 minutes off the bench. Max King, 47 minutes starting. Kikau ended up being replaced as well. And Matty Burton also had some time in the bin, the head bin. Tackle breaks. So, Carraz was busting tackles. I've given this the man of the match, I believe, was Reid Marnie. I felt he was absolutely desperate in defence. I felt he did a good job from dummy half. And he was sort of so essential because that middle was soft. Sam Hughes, Max King, and Jamin Salmon to start were a little bit off the pace. And Salmon's first game back, Max King after Origin, and Sam Hughes an interrupted return from injury. It just wasn't where it sort of should have been. Salmon with a really silly penalty under fatigue that you won't see him do too often. But look how they work. Salmon, 22 tackles. He had 6 misses in the middle. That's high for him. But the thing is, he's gone out there and his line speed was almost where it would want to be, but just a bit below. Watching it, and that makes all the difference. If that line speed isn't where it needs to be for the starting players, we can find ourselves under pressure. It's that cutthroat, and I felt that that put pressure on our edges quite early as well, and we just had misses everywhere. And it put Reid on. Reid's missed 7 tackles, but I've given him man of the match for ineffective because it's the amount of times he was there to sort of slow things down. Look, when he made that break and kicked the ball dead with a stupid play, which just had Serraldo going, what, WTF? The very next set, he smashed the ball right underneath Griffin Neem, got low, just went hard at it and smashed it. And there was quite a lot of plays like that for the team where they made up for mistakes. And I really love that. Kikau towards the end of the game, just buggered, working his butt off. 25 tackles, 3 missed. There's so many misses. Burton and Toby missing 5 each. Someone tried to point that out today. That's why Toby was crap and said he had no try assists. Well, he was going down the left, broke a tackle, went back to the right, got the ball to Matt Burton, who saw some space and then put the kick in behind for our first try. It was a pretty good try involvement. And I just felt that Toby asked questions. He got tackled. His runs, his play the balls were quite quick, I felt. When he took the line on. And he had quite a few runs, Toby. 12 hit-ups for 105 metres. So he did his job. And anyone who says he didn't doesn't understand the system at the Bulldogs. I felt that also felt Salmon's passing was a little bit off, and that's all part of coming back, right? So Serrato could have started a couple of players that are probably fitter and may have been a little bit better in that game, and it could have been said in the game before against the Broncos as well. But he didn't for a reason, because you need to get some leadership out there, some trust, and they needed the run so that they're going to be in a better position against the Dragons and then, hopefully get back to peak fitness heading into the finals, which is all what it's all about. So I was really happy with Jeffrey Arenikama. He was definitely in our top. Some people say he was the man of the match. I thought he was outstanding. I'll give it to Reid Marnie. I just felt he was in everything. I felt he made so many important tackles. Some of his missed tackles were important as well. Bailey Hayward wasn't too bad. Had a couple of runs when he come on. And looked dangerous, but as far as his connection and his passing, not a bad job. Harry Hayes was brilliant off the bench. And Josh Curran, look, 7 runs for 73 metres. Now, people will go, okay, 7 runs for 73 metres. Play the ball speed a lot quicker than it had been. They really worked him over last week against the Broncos. And this week, I felt he ran more direct, and it was much more, bit more aggression, bit more leg speed, less skipping into the line. But you'll see, when Josh Curran's running the ball, he's not just running the football. He's running for a position on the field, and they're all doing that. But he's very much a team-based player and just doing the job he's been told to do to set things up, and they're very much on board with what they've got to do. And our halves play a big role in that. They really do. And that should never be understated when trying to look at statistics to compare halfbacks that haven't really played in the same team under the same system, then comparing it with the best halves in the comp. All I can say is the halves in the top 4 or even the top 8, how good's their other half going? I'll ask you that. See, stats without context don't mean shit. You can sit there and go, okay, well, the back 5 made hundreds of metres, but the forwards didn't make much, so the forwards were lazy. No, it just depends where the ball was, how much possession they had, and the field position, because that will determine who's taking a hit up and who's not. But some people just cannot understand that and refuse to look at it. What they see, and this is another illusion people see. They see a player like Adam Fanor-Blake. He runs through, barges through the line, has footwork, and can do 11 metre, 12 metre runs quite a few times through a game. And then you have your big men in a lot of teams that aren't as high profile, and they're crashing through the line, right? Yeah, that's great. But against the Bulldogs, they might be getting the post contact, but after they get that initial post contact, the Bulldogs get numbers in and drive back, and then start reducing that post contact meter number. While they're doing that, we get our line set. So we're actually, each tackle is taking longer, but the opposition still might have a really fast play the ball speed. Because I kept looking at the games and saying, well, teams are laying over us in the ruck, slowing us down quite a bit. And there's not too often they're driving us back. Yeah, sometimes we do, but not too often. You know, we use our wingers well, and we have a really good system to get things going. Sometimes we can't get out of our own end, but we kick our way out. But it's all about how we restrict the opposition and where we leave them. And that's the important part. And where we're catching these teams, driving them back in numbers, it really sort of puts them a little bit under pressure from the places on the field they want to be. Makes it a bit harder. But it also is really good for setting our attack in defence. And by that I mean having a set line that's got the time and space able to launch in through the leg speed and do it again and again and again. And it really takes a smart halfback and lots of attacking threats that have the ability to back it up with their defence as well, that are going to beat the Bulldogs in their own home. And they're going to have to be consistent with it. You know, we can beat ourselves. And I felt we did that in the last two matches. Okay. The mindset of the team was wrong, or it just changed, where they thought they were going to be able to run away with some games, and it never eventuated. And they overplayed their hand. They got some reckless, and they let teams back in, and were unable to sort of wrestle it back. Against the Cowboys, well, I felt that was one of the best games to win, and I felt we got more out of it winning it that way than if we'd put 60 on them. I know I would have loved watching that, and I would have felt great. And I'm probably talking about how positive that is as well. But the way we had to win, where players had to make big plays and save people's asses, just getting in the fight, having our bench come on and doing and being able to add energy, which they weren't able to do the week before. Yes, there was errors, but we made up for our errors. Yes, attack was clunky sometimes, but why do you think that is? You've got new combinations on the field. You've got players that are underdone from injury. It's the origin period. You're missing Kurt Mann, Stephen Crichton. Satili Tupanua's been away. Daniel Salika-Fafita ended up playing New South Wales Cup on the weekend. It was going all right. We got smashed 50-0. These things happen. But I think the important stat when looking at this game is how many times we forced the Cowboys into error. And that's a stat you just don't get to see too often. There's the team list there as it was and how it started. So as I said, Sammy, Max and Jamin were just a little bit off the pace. Harry, Bailey, Josh really made up for it. I thought Curtis and his minimal contribution that he was able to give did a pretty good job. And it's not like their bench were hopeless. Cohen S, Kai O'Donnell, Thomas McHaley, and Carl Orton. They did their job. I felt we contained them pretty well. McHaley got away a couple of really late offloads. I thought Harrison Edwards worked hard. Nanai went to put a big hit on King, he's done really well since he was dropped earlier in the year. Obviously, these guys backing up. Griffin Neem, we absolutely flogged him, and I didn't even know that Jordan McLean was playing, which is interesting. Reece Robson, I felt he had a really good game. And, had some runs which we didn't expect, and I've seen more of his running game lately. Jackson Purdue back in the halves was okay. I thought Braden Burns played well. Drinkwater wasn't too bad, and obviously their captain did a good job. But overall, I felt that Toby Sexton more than matched his own with Tom Dearden. How many line breaks and assists did Tom have, and Jackson combined? So when I look at a halves, I don't look at the individual, I look at the pairing. And that's much more important. Because Matt Burton's our chief playmaker. And Toby's had to step up and do quite a bit of it. And whilst people want to sit there and to justify Galvin, they've got to bring Toby down. And it's almost the same the other way. Take Galvin down to continue with Toby because he deserves it. I just say Serrato's got his plan. He knows what he's going to do. You'll get my predictions. And those who are watching this will get an early prediction into the team that I believe will play. And I'll show that at the end of this video of the team that I believe will be picked, the squad. And it may surprise some, but I think we're going to go close to picking the side that Cameron Serrato, if he had a crystal ball and he had every player available, I think he's going to pick that team today as if this was the first semi-final. Okay, that's what I think is going to happen for the Dragons match. So we'll have a look at that in a second. But, the Bulldogs, very important win. It kept us in third spot on the ladder, equal second. Only 2 points ahead of the Warriors, who need to keep winning. And I think they've got a system and enough depth to do that. I'm not going to make the mistake of writing them off twice in the season. And I believe that we will have, the way they're developing this team, will have Serrato will have a full squad there come semi-final time of fit and able players able to be called upon on the run there, and you'll see multiple players play their part and a real rotation of maybe one or two players getting a rest on the way through without really losing too much from our squad, and in some cases getting an actual gain out of it due to bringing in someone who's fresh or got energy, and then being able to restore that energy by resting a player so that then they can be even better come the next time they play. And I think that's how it's going to roll. But we will see. We will see how that happens. Okay. There's my big head. So let's have a look at the early prediction. Tracy, Carraz, Bronson Cherry, Stephen Crichton, Anari Tuala left wing, Burton and Sexton, King, Marnie, and Curran to play prop, Kickow, Preston and Salmon, Kurt Mann, Harry Hayes, Satili Tupanua, Bailey Hayward, Galvin, 19th man, Hughes, Rinikama, Curtis Moran, and Daniel Saluka Fafita, or Jonathan Sewer. to fulfil that last spot. I do believe that they will go with a Curran Hayes Tupanua over having a one of those players drop out and keeping a Sam Hughes or a Daniel Salika Fafita. But I could be wrong there. But I'm thinking that's what might happen. I'm thinking that Hayes and Curran, if they play that role, may sort of swap around a little bit. Because it is harder to start than it is to come off the bench when you're playing that role. It may not go that way. It's going to be a huge decision and one where they've got to drop someone. There could be a chance that Toby Sexton is dropped for Lachlan Galvin. And if that's the way the club goes, that would be a pretty big indicator that's the direction they're going to go from here on. I think this is the new season. I think it starts with the team we name, but more so the team we run out with on Saturday. So that's my early call on it. I think they're going to pick a side which has the most trusted 17 players that can play long minutes, that can defend with enough strike out there to put on some points. And I think you'll see them get to work against the Dragons. I'm not expecting us to blow them off the park. I think the Dragons are a big chance in this game. And the reason I say that is because of the way they're due for a win. They haven't been far off in most games. And they've got class across the field. Obviously, their halves are a point of concern. But if they play well as a team and defend well, it could be hard for the Dogs. But I expect us to go out there and dominate the possession, use our energy, and put the Dragons under a heap of pressure throughout the match. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think this is the path they'll go. But, I'm not sure if they're going to drop. They're definitely not going to play Sexton and Galvin unless they're going to give someone a rest like Bailey Hayward, which they could do. I think, actually, that's what I think will happen moving through the season. You will see a Bailey Hayward get a rest, and for Lachlan Galvin to come in or Sexton to come in on the bench. I really believe that'll happen. So whoever is dropped out of those two, you'll see they'll get a return when they rest one of the players on the run home. Because I would think that Bailey would need a little bit of a rest. I really do. I think other players that could be rested are Harry Hayes for a game, and that might even happen this game. We probably don't want to rest, but get a rest, refresh, rejuvenate. And that would open the door for one of those bigger guys like Hughes or Daniel Salika Fafita, depending on who they think's the best person for that job. And that's the way I'll be looking at it. So we'll continue to see a rotation of such. I think that's what's going to happen as we move through. These forwards are going to, one will sort of drop out, another one will come in. If a Hayward has a rest, Galvin will come in or Sexton. Or maybe they'll even play a Turpin in that type of role. And just try and keep everyone ticking over so that if we have shit go down at the worst time, 2 players suspended, another 3 injured, which can happen and almost has happened to us, we'll have players ready to go that'll, have the trust and backing of the coach to go out there and play to their strengths and contribute to the team winning the match. And they'll be held to that expectation. So look, I'm expecting that'll be the team for the Dragons. I've told you where the changes will be. There's a chance he plays Rinikama over Tuala. I don't think so. There's also a chance that a player like Bronson Cherry gets a rest. And if that's the case, they'll probably keep a Rinikama in there. You might even see a Jaden Sewer. Not sure if Jack Underhill will get a debut this year now. But while they've got that full complement there from that squad that I've named of 23 players, I think anyone sort of outside of there is going to be hard pressed to get a go, except for Blake Wilson. I think there's still a chance, definitely with injuries, he could play a part. Okay, that's the review, guys, and the early preview. There will be you'll see this. There'll be a lot of videos coming out on the Tuesday, including 2 lives. So tomorrow is a big day. But thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the win on the weekend. I certainly did. It's good to see the NRL women's doing so well. 2 wins from 2 games. Hopefully they can keep going and playing like the Bulldogs that they are. Thanks for listening. Go the Dogs.